right, thanks for tuning in once again. It's Ishmael Sistrunk from the St. Louis American and STLamerican.com, here with our Rams Roundup correspondent, Palmer Alexander III. Palmer, this is our first Rams Roundup starting the new season, 2015 season for the St. Louis Rams.
And I'm in a good mood.
In a good mood, for good reason. The should-have-been Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, we'll get to that later, the foolish move. But the runners-up came into town to St. Louis. A lot of people were nervous about that game. The Rams ended up pulling off a victory. Palmer, were you surprised that the Rams were able to beat the Seahawks, and how did they do it?
Well, I was surprised because they played them at home. They always played the Seahawks really good at home. And one of the things that the Rams were able to do was they didn't have a lot of penalties. They only had 4 penalties for just 30 yards. You know, penalty has always been Achilles' heel of the team. They did a great job of catching the ball. Nobody dropped the pass the entire game. Jared Cook had probably one of his best games as a Rams. You know, I've definitely talked about him unflatteringly. Is that even a damn word? Unflatteringly? But anyway, you've never seen nothing flattering about Jared Cook, but he made great catches. Lance Kendrick, the guy who's always dropped passes from time to time, caught a big pass, held on to it. Everybody that had the ball thrown to him, they caught it with no problems.
Yeah, and, you know, one of the guys who I have had issues with or voiced concerns with in the past, Tavon Austin, really came out of his shell. We saw the development of Tavon Austin. Is he now a legitimate threat that everybody expected him to be as a rookie? Is he going to be able to fill that role this season?
I think so. You're starting to kind of see his game now, and it's taken a while, but I think it was probably more so of them scheming to and getting him more involved. And I think something else that I noticed in that game is just his ability to run routes. I mean, that it was that one pass there where he just blew right by Richard Sherman up the sideline and the ball was slightly underthrown, or he would have had 3 touchdowns that afternoon. The Rams were able to rely on him in the running game because they couldn't get a lot of things going, line him up in the backfield, just something different. And he had the longest run of the day, which was 16 yards, but he got into the end zone.
Yeah, and also had that return touchdown, which was huge for the team, and really looked like the electric player, again, that everybody has been waiting for him to show on that consistent basis. One thing for me that I noticed, you know, what a difference a quarterback makes for the football team.
Yeah.
You know, there were some people who were on the fence about the Nick Foles, Sam Bradford deal, saying who got the better, you know, aspect. To me, Sam Bradford was never better than okay. You know, he had some solid games, but number one, he was always injured, and 2, he just never was that guy. To me, Nick Foles, let's not get it twisted, I'm not going to say he's a Hall of Fame, all-pro, but he looks like a very capable, confident starting quarterback in the league, and I think that made all the difference, just the poise that he had, the way he was able to get balls, fit them into, you know, the lanes at the necessary times. It just seemed like it helped the team build confidence, and the offense looked pretty good.
Yeah, and then, you know, something that I also noticed, though, too, you know, when he had the fumble and, you know, he didn't let the team get rattled. He was able to hold them together. Isaiah Peed, a costly fumble. And I think, I'll tell you something, that was a huge character win for them. It was a huge character win, and you can attribute it with having leadership at the quarterback position, the most important position on the field. And so for him to be able to galvanize his team and then, you know, get them still playing on par, and then for them to pull out a victory the way that they did, I think that's big for them. It's a great building block, but there's still more improvement that they need to make going down the line, especially getting that running game going.
Yeah, and you mentioned Isaiah Peed, and I mean that.
You text me.
I text you, and the crazy part about that play is, I think the play before, there was a play where Benny Cunningham had a pretty good, you know, I think it was a catch where he ran for
it was a 42-yard catch.
Yeah, so then he went on the sideline, and I said, I hope they don't get a ball to Peed. But they gave it to Tavon Austin. He came in, they gave it to Tavon Austin. I said, woo. Okay. And then the very next time, Cunningham had another good run, went to the sideline. They gave it to Peed, and that happened. And I was fearful of that every time I saw him in the game, especially at that point. It was like a critical juncture.
Yeah.
And I was just like, please don't give him the ball.
Yeah.
And they did. And
Well, Isaiah P has no business being in the NFL. He doesn't. I mean, he's absolutely awful. And if it wasn't for the fact that Trey Watts is serving that 4-game suspension, I don't even think he would be on this team. He shouldn't be on this team. When you're running back and you fumble the ball with the least amount of contact, it looked like it really looked like diarrhea just running down the front of his uniform. And then I just couldn't believe what I saw. I'm like, this is a professional football player. And then what cracks me up is the way some of the people was talking him up towards the end of the preseason, talking about this is the best that he looked. Well, actually, if you remember his rookie season, towards the end of the preseason, he ran the ball strongly towards the end of preseason, and we saw how that turned out. And then they got this guy return kicks. I mean, what the hell are they trying to do?
Yeah, I don't understand it. I mean, I guess like you said, they got some injuries, they got suspension, so, but yeah, don't give him the ball in the clutch time. Although I guess, in his defense, he's probably looking right now, he's looking at Jamal Charles and saying, thank you, because now people are forgetting about what I did.
I did.
Rams were able to pull it out. Palmer, what is the story about the defense? How do you think the defense did?
The defense did well. I mean, yeah, they gave up 31 points. They made plays when they had to make plays. I mean, Aaron Donald leading the team in tackles. And when your defensive tackle is leading you in tackles, what is that really saying about your front four? Great interception by Tremaine Johnson. I've been talking him up since he got here. Best instincts in the defense, hands down. The defensive line, that secondary is the heart and soul of this team. Roberson came in and playing well. And I'll tell you something else. I remember when Roberson played at Florida, and he had a lot of hype around him. And with Mizzou playing in the SEC, and you saw him frequently, I didn't see any of that. The hype wasn't matching up to the player. This time, I'm seeing that with him, and he's turned to another cornerstone guy in that secondary, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of him.
Yeah, and so the Rams defense, this whole time the Rams defense has really been the top billing of the team, and just going into that game, being able to push it into overtime and come out with a win, they lived up to that billing. I mean, they showed that, hey, we are the real deal. When you take a team that has been to the Super Bowl the past 2 seasons, should have won both years, and you are able to play them that tough and come out with a win at home, when nobody expects you to, you got to count that as a win. Yeah,
and then remember the last game of the season last year, they shut them out for 3.5 quarters. So the one of the biggest problems with the Rams, two of them were 1 penalties, and the other thing was the lack of execution. The Rams did a good job of executing in every phase of the game. Now, they did give up that kick return for a touchdown, which I think that was the last punt return since Patrick Peterson, I think, in 2012. So as far as kick returns, they've always done a great job with that. Greg Zuerlein was clutch when they needed him, made the kick in overtime. And again, the defense, they made the stop when they needed to make the stop, 4th and 1. They gave the Marshawn Lynch, and this time it didn't pay out for him.
And I'm glad you brought up that play, because it just reminds me, once again, we talked about, Seahawks been to the Super Bowl the past 2 seasons, but they have one of the least clutch coaches in the history of the league. How do you go in an overtime game? You got, 4th and 1 or 4th and 2?
Yeah, 4th and 1.
And you line up in the shotgun. Yeah, he handed Marshawn Lynch the ball, which he didn't do in the Super Bowl, but he handed it to him 5 yards in the backfield. Why don't you line up in the eye, give him the ball, and trust that big, strong guy to get that 1 yard? He always tries to be too cute, and it came back and it bit him in the butt again.
Yeah, and the shotgun formation, it really don't work when you got power backs in the backfield. Those plays are better designed for fleet of foot guys like a Tavon Austin. But even in this day and age, you can't even just run a standard shotgun and hand it off.
We talked about the Rams week 1, impressive victory. No doubt, which gives you optimism for the season. But let's go forward. Let's talk about the next game. The St. Louis Rams have the Washington Redskins up next. How do you think they'll fare against the Redskins?
Well, on paper, the Rams should be able to win, but we already know you have to play the game. You can't beat teams on paper. You can't beat teams with mystique. My concern is for the Rams is will they play down to the competition? Washington is definitely on a downward spiral right now with so much controversy surrounding Robert Griffin and Coach Gruden. And so you hope that the Rams can continue to dominate and to sort their wheel over the Washington Redskins, because they're not a good football team. They got a lot of key members hurt, and there's just a lot of disarray and dysfunction going on all throughout the organization, going all the way down to the football field. So this was a big character win beating Seattle. We're going to see how much character the Rams have being able to go into Washington and then execute the way that they have been doing in that last game, and then just keep something going, because the one thing that they haven't done with Jeff Fisher is build a solid winning streak, and this would be the first time he's ever started 2-0, so this is really big for him.
Yeah, and again, I agree with you. I mean, I think the Rams should beat the Redskins, especially coming off the momentum they built up in that first game. But it will be interesting to see. I mean, we've always seen that the Rams have had this roller coaster type of journey, so hopefully they will not fall back down. What's the latest you're hearing with Todd Gurley? We heard that, he's been seen in practice a little bit lately. How is his situation coming? Will he play this week?
Well, they saying that he's not ready yet, but with Jeff Fisher, you just never know. But I will say this: I think there is a high level of concern about them running the football. I mean, Cunningham had 45 yards and 16 carries, under 3 yards a carry. You can't win like that. You really can't. And the only reason why they was fortunate enough to be able to move the ball was they had a good passing game. The run-to-pass ratio was pretty much dead even, 28 passes, 27 runs, and that's where the Rams need to be. But what helped them was the fact they was able to execute during the passing game, getting almost 12 yards per reception. So that's something the Rams going to continue to have to lean on, because the offensive line is still unproven, and they still, kind of working through their little kinks.
What about Brian Quick? Any news on him?
Well, he didn't dress in that game. I was a little surprised about that. Fisher wants to get him back on the field, but I'm telling you something, Stephen Bailey had himself a pretty good game too, and he has the best hands of all of the receivers that the Rams have. So it may be just a numbers thing. I mean, with him getting back out there on the football field, but that's unfortunate though.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to seeing what the Rams can do here against the Redskins. Again, I'm with you. I think they should be able to pull it out. Going back real quick to the Seattle game, Palmer, tell me, who is your player of the game for that? Who do you think did the best job, either surprising you or just willed that team to victory? It was
definitely Aaron Donald. I mean, the 2 sacks, the three tackles for loss. I think he total, 9, maybe 10 tackles. I mean, a defensive tackle leading you in tackles in the game, that is just unbelievable. I mean, getting double-digit tackles, I mean, you don't see that often. That just lets you know how dominant he is. And I'm going to go on record. I'm going to tell you something. Aaron Donald is the best draft pick the Rams have gotten since Torrey Holt. When I'm talking about drafting a guy, plugging him in, and they make an immediate impact, he's the best they've gotten since Torrey Holt.
Yeah, and then, this week will sort of be a representation. The Rams are playing the Redskins. They made that big trade for RG3, got all those picks. RG3 is now the 3 stands for third on the depth chart. And the Rams, they made a lot of good quality picks, and those guys are getting a lot of burn with the team. Yeah,
absolutely, and especially Donald. I mean, that pick is paying dividends, including Tavon Austin and Alec Ogletree. All of those players right now are playing. And Alec Ogletree was the guy that made the tackle to win the game. He was right there filling that hole in the gap. So the Rams got these guys. They're finally starting to come around. They just need to be more consistent. Even they know that. And one thing they always kept saying is that they've been reading their press clippings and everybody else telling them how great they are when they still haven't cracked the top 10 when it comes to defense. That is supposed to be, the thing that held this team up in the first place, having a defensive-minded coach like Jeff Fisher, having Greg Williams in. So we were expecting a top 10 defense. They have the ability. Can they execute and get to that next level?
All right. Well, we will find out this weekend. As always, appreciate it, Palmer. I was going to do, a bum who makes the bum list of the week.
But
we already know. See, I wasn't even going to say his name, but we already know.
I got a bum song. Every word in the Bum song is bum.
Bum. Well, yeah, he definitely would go to the IR with the on the bum list. He got a bum knee, he got a bum ankle.
When I tell you, hey, Dad, when I tell you, when you go to team doctor, he come out in the lab coat. He said, "I'm sorry, sir, you have full blown bum disease." I mean, that's a bad epidemic, man. But and they're paying him almost $1 million a year. I mean, you got to cut your losses. Got to cut your losses.
Yeah, well, hopefully that bum disease is not contagious. Palmer, where can people find you? What are you doing? Where do people look you up at?
You can find me on Twitter at the legend KIL, one L and kill, but kill still kill. Weekly podcast, In the Zone, uncut, uncensored. It's like driving a sports car on the Autobahn. You know what I'm saying? So you get the PG, the full house version of what I like to do, and then you hear me Monday through Friday on the Charlie Tuna Show. And see me here every week during the season. It's St. Louis American.
All right, you can check me out on Twitter too. It's just my name, Ishmael Sistrunk. And always, you can check us both out at stlamerican.com. Be sure to like, subscribe. If you got any questions or comments, be sure to make those comments below. We appreciate it. We will see you next time. Peace.